Okay, so this lesson is about the heart and circulation. So hopefully you'll have a bit more of an idea how to explain how the heart circulates blood around the body, the advantages of a double circulatory system, and later, next lesson, we'll be able to interpret data related to blood pressure in blood vessels. So first of all, the heart is the pump that pumps the blood around the body through the vessels. It's that pumping action, the contraction and relaxation of the muscles in the walls of the heart that allow the blood to be pumped around the body. So first of all, the heart pumps blood through the arteries. Arteries have a very thick muscular and elastic layer to allow for expansion and recoil. Then they will go into even smaller arteries, and then eventually when they get to the organs they will branch off into very, very small capillaries. Now capillaries are only 1 cell thick and they only let 1 blood cell through at a time, so they're really quite small. Then the capillaries will rebranch into veins, which will take the blood back to the heart. So that's basically the overall function of the blood vessels. However, we'll go into more detail about blood vessels later on. So first of all, if we look at the chambers of the heart, you've got to imagine that this heart is part of you. So it's the opposite way around of what you think. So this is the right atrium, even though it's on your left. You've got to imagine that you are the diagram. So it's actually, this is the right atrium. This is the right ventricle. Got the Vena Cava. You've got the aorta here. This is the pulmonary artery going up to the lungs. This is a pulmonary vein which is returning from the lungs into the left atrium. Then you've got the left ventricle, and that will send blood through the aorta. Now you can get lots of different shapes of diagrams, so it's just trying to work out what each of them is. So we'll just look at a few different diagrams. So again, this is the right side of the heart. This is a Vena Cava, which brings deoxygenated blood back from the body it drains back into the heart. So this is the Vena Cava here, which drains deoxygenated blood back into the right side of the heart, into the right atrium. The right atrium will then contract and it will send blood into the right ventricle. The right ventricle will then contract, sending blood up through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. So when this right ventricle contracts, it shuts these valves, and because these valves are between the atrium and the ventricle, they're called atrioventricular valves here. Yep, so that will contract, send blood through the pulmonary artery. It opens these valves, the pressure, which are called the semi-lunar valves. So as the blood is forced through, it sends blood up to the lungs through the pulmonary artery to pick up oxygen from the lungs. Now this is the pulmonary artery is the only artery in the body that carries deoxygenated blood, because the rest of them carry oxygenated. So pulmonary, anything to do with pulmonary is to do with the lungs. So it picks up oxygen from the lungs, which we'll assume are up here. It then returns to the heart through the pulmonary vein, and this is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood, because most of the time veins carry deoxygenated blood. So from the lungs, the oxygenated blood will return to the left side of the heart, the left atrium, through the pulmonary vein. So then the left atrium will contract and it will force blood into the left ventricle. Then the left ventricle will contract and it will force, at very high pressure, blood through the aorta, opening these semilunar valves and taking blood to the rest of the body through the aorta. Now you'll notice that the left ventricle wall is much thicker than the right the ventricle wall. And that's because the right ventricle only has to pump blood to the lungs and back, which is quite a short distance from the heart relatively. Whereas the left ventricle has to have enough pressure, has to contract with enough force to pump the blood all the way around the whole body and back. So it's got to pump blood a lot further. So, one more time just to go through the different parts of the heart so that you've seen a few different types of diagrams. So, this is the right side, this is the left side. This is the Vena Cava, which is bringing in deoxygenated blood from the body. This is the right atrium. These are the atrioventricular valves. This is the right ventricle. This is the pulmonary artery, which goes to the lungs. This one here is the pulmonary vein, and we're now returning to the left side of the heart. This is the left atrium. Again, AV valves, atrioventricular valves. We've got the left ventricle. These are what's known as the heartstrings, but they're actually tendons. So the heartstrings are made out of tendons. These here are semilunar valves. And then this is the aorta, which will send blood to the whole rest of the body. Just a note, because this comes up so many times, what is the job of the coronary arteries? So the coronary arteries they branch off the aorta, and they are the arteries which supply the heart itself with blood, because obviously the heart is contracting, continuously throughout your whole life until it stops beating. So it obviously needs a lot of blood with oxygen for respiration, so it can contract, the muscle can contract and pump the blood around the body. So these coronary arteries are very important to supply the heart muscle itself with oxygen and blood. So we've been through that. I'm not going to go through that again. Another note as well, because this comes up quite a lot, why is the human circulatory system known as a double circulatory system? And it's because it takes two loops. It does one loop to the lungs and then goes back to the heart to be repumped. So it goes to the right side to be pumped to the lungs, and then it returns to the heart to be repumped to the left side to go to the rest of the body. So it has two loops. Another thing is it keeps the deoxygenated side on the right side separate from the oxygenated side on the left side. Yeah, so we said before, it's called double circulation because it takes one loop to the lungs and back, and then the heart does another loop, goes back to the heart and does another loop to the body, capillaries and back. And that is it.